Hello everybody. Let's take a question and ask JP today. The questioner today is Sai Teja from Nellore. He's a student. Sai Teja.
Hi JP sir.
Hello.
I am Sai Teja. I am from Nellore. I am preparing for civil services examination, sir. First of all, I am a huge fan of you, sir. Right now, India is facing a lot of challenges: an economic crisis, political crisis, pollution, health, education. And my question is, to bring the changes we are seeking for, changing the law through representatives in every aspect, or empowering the people to bring the change and making them a part to bring the change. Which one is the most effective way? And does the role of the common people in a democracy ends after electing a representative? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sai Teja. Some of you might not have followed, because I think there's a problem with the audio. His question is, India requires many changes: rule of law, education, healthcare, political reform, economic management, and so on and so forth. What is the most effective mechanism to bring about a change? I wish there is a simple answer, textbook answer. There is none. It depends on the context. It depends on the opportunity presented. There's no one answer. As a person who has been fighting throughout life for fundamental changes in our country, and who has been modestly successful in getting some changes happen, I don't find any particular answer. It depends. There are cases where a constitutional amendment could be engineered in a 1-hour meeting with the key players in the country. There are cases where a simple procedural improvement in voter registration or a simple introduction of a new vaccine to prevent the unfortunate births of preventable congenital abnormalities. It takes years and years. It's so self-evident. There's no big political question involved. It's not polarizing. It's not controversial. It's obvious, but it takes years. But sometimes big changes can happen much faster. So there's no particular rhyme or reason anywhere in the world. I wish there's a formula. You know how to apply it to change the world. That's why politics and public policy and changing the public perception and changing the way society conducts itself is such a complicated affair. It requires exceptional leadership qualities. There are no easy answers. But as I said, depends on the context. But in general, in a country like India, there are 2 or 3 broad principles. Wherever the law or a policy is actually empowering the people, allowing millions of people making decisions on the basis of their own individual gain and loss. They make a calculus. Things work very well. The reason why market-oriented policies, delicensing, removing controls, permit Raj, they work so beautifully. Why? Not because of some mantra. Instead of saying that the telephone is a monopoly of the government undertaking, you can only buy their instrument to get their service and nothing else, everything else is a crime. We said anybody can provide this service subject to certain conditions and meeting certain standards and obligations. And you as consumer can opt for any of them. It's your choice. Now, it is not the mantra of that order or that law that changed everything. It is the decision of each of us. Each consumer is now making a decision to suit her purse, her taste, her need. Your purse, your taste, your need decide what happens. When all of us decide collectively on what we need, then the producer has to respond because we buy. Nobody can order us to buy something that somebody produces. So such changes have the greatest impact, giving the greatest measure of freedom and choice to the people. But not every change can be of that order. To improve the police, I cannot give choice to people and say, you choose a policeman of your choice, or an inspector of your choice, or a court of your choice to give justice. Simply not feasible. There you have to go into deeper systems with accountability. Empowerment of the players, accountability to the system, and transparency. There are some other areas. 2G spectrum, when it became a big issue, let me give one illustration to make the point. it became a big issue in the country, and all of us were exercised about that. Many people talked about putting people in jail, marpies, agitations, a lot of noise. But I reached out to several eminent Indians, and together we decided to go to Supreme Court on a simple thing. All these cases and punishing them, unlikely to happen in India. We all know what is the situation. And as we predicted, nothing happened except a few days or weeks being in prison and then released as great heroes. Nobody was convicted in 2G spectrum case, if you recall now. We said, let us end this form of corruption, allocation of natural resources permanently. So we asked the court, because there is a prima facie evidence that arbitrarily there was allocation of spectrum. There was no system. There was no method. So we first argued it should be cancelled. And two, allocate now on the basis of competitive bidding in a transparent manner. The court agreed. I guarantee you, in allocation of spectrum since then, there is no possibility of corruption. Because you change the way it is allocated, the system is changed. It's now a transparent competitive bidding process. So it depends on the issue, the context. And we must bring all weapons to our repertoire. I cannot say I won't use this as long as they're constitutional and legally valid and morally unquestionable. Any tool that is available, we must use it to adapt to the situation. But no one tool is applicable to all situations. But don't lose heart. India is actually pretty adaptable as a country. Despite all the noise, sometimes the ignorance and polarization, on big decisions, Indians are much more pragmatic as a society because we have had centuries of practice of coexistence. Look at the gun culture in a country like the United States. It's self-evident that you can't simply have everybody armed with a gun. For 100 population in America, there are 130 guns. In many geographies, anybody can carry a gun, go anywhere. And if it takes it onto his head, if he's mentally unstable at that moment or he's angry, he can shoot anybody. This simply is ridiculous. They're not able to control it. In countries like India, there's greater consensus. Even then, I believe we have more guns than necessary. 5% people have guns in India, or at least 5% of the, for 100 people, there are 5 guns among the population, outside the police and armed forces. In my judgment, even that should be brought down. But we are rational, we are much saner than America. Look at the problems they face with every budget. Or only today, after months and months of struggle and fear and panic, only today they increased the debt ceiling, which is absurd. No reasonable country, no sensible democratic country has this problem. If budgets are approved, debt automatically stands approved. Each time there is a threat to not only American economy but to global economy. Indian political system, despite all its imperfections, is far more pragmatic because Indian society is far more pragmatic. Therefore, sometimes change happens much faster than we realize. People are much more amenable to change than the politicians realize. Take education. The people are voting with their feet. They feel, in many cases, the government schools are not delivering the goods. There's no accountability, though a lot of money is spent. Therefore, even the poorest people are willing to spend money out of pocket to send their children to private schools. The tragedy is, even in private schools, there is very poor quality education in the most part. Only a few elite schools are giving some decent education. So the people are ready. It's not ideology that is stopping it. It is the bankruptcy of the administration and the political parties in recognizing what needs to be done, not the popular opinion. Indian society is far more pragmatic than we give them credit for. And sometimes our political parties are very pragmatic too. But they must extend that pragmatism and wisdom to all issues that matter to people's lives to bring about the necessary changes much faster than we are getting today. That is the greatest safeguard for the future. In the ultimate analysis, while people need not be aroused on every single issue, as Lincoln said, public opinion is everything. Without it, nothing will succeed. With it, nothing will fail. If people understand what are the issues, and if they take the trouble to communicate to our fellow citizens in a very simple manner, and if we are convinced on the whole that this is right, this works, then sometimes political parties and politicians may take time, but eventually that will definitely happen. That's how economic reform happened in 1991. with hardly any resistance or any problem in a poor country like India, such a vast and diverse country like India. Very few countries managed economic reform the way India managed. The genius of a Narasimha Rao and a Manmohan Singh. But equally, the readiness of a significant section of Indian population, because they understood the rot that is happening in the name of license, permit, quota, Raj, fraudulent socialism. Much of the public understood that. Once the people's minds are prepared, when the time came, it was easy to change trajectory. So you require many, many things in a democracy. It's a patient, time-consuming affair, but it's a worthwhile exercise. If some of us invest enormous amount of time and energy to persuade people, to collect evidence, to develop the logic, to come up with innovative solutions, and to communicate effectively, and with humility, and be willing to change your ideas with more and more evidence and better class of ideas, then I think that's the greatest guarantor of the right kind of change happening to protect the future of our country. I'm a great believer in that, and I'm a great believer in the future of our country. I'm a great optimist. No reason to be pessimistic or cynical, but we must work hard at it. Miracles will not happen of their own accord. We must make them happen.